So he freaks out, and so he starts telling his friends. And he's like, "Come with me. I'll show you the launch. I'm not lying."
People forget that.
Yes.
He went out and he showed people a craft that didn't look like any normal craft come up right when he said it would.
Yeah.
Over a base that wasn't even known then really well, and a sub base, an area not Area 51 proper. He's the luckiest motherfucker in the world. He did it 3 weekends in a row till he got caught.
Right.
So it's just like, man, every time you try to call bullshit on him, I try so hard on so many things, motherfucker. People think I'm just some fucking believer.
People have ever called bullshit on him is that he said he might have seen an actual alien. But he said he was walking down a hallway and looked through one of those little tiny windows that's in a door, those little tiny 12-inch square windows, and he peered in it quickly as he was walking by, and it seemed like there was a small thing that was sitting on a chair, and there's people standing over it. But he doesn't know if it was a doll. He doesn't know if it was, and so in his mind, he's like, "Fuck, did I see an alien? Like, what the fuck?" But he can't go back. It's not like everything's. If you work on top secret stuff, apparently everything's very compartmentalized. Like the people that work on metallurgy don't have access to the people that work on propulsion, that don't have access to the people that, if there is a biological entity, that they examine it.
Which frustrated the fuck out of him, right?
That's not how you do science.
It's not how you do science.
Right. You have to collaborate.
He says, I wasn't the most qualified person to be there. Maybe they hired me because they could easily diss me. He's like, why didn't we have better people on this? People that were more... So he was really frustrated, and he said to me, like, he thought it was a crime against the scientific community. If they have this stuff, like he says, he says it was a crime. And, he talks about that thing through the window. He's so funny about it. I sat him down for long, many sessions, long, really trying to get it out of him.
Yeah.
He goes, Jeremy, I think they were just obsessed with measurements. I go, what do you mean? And he's like, well, look, there was something in a chair, but it was small. Maybe they were trying to just measure it to see if it would fit in a craft. So that's how he kind of gets around, like, did he something or not? He doesn't know.
Like it could have been a doll that they constructed that was really the same height as these things were.
He just doesn't want to go there, right?
And so these creatures that were in this vehicle, if there were creatures in this vehicle.
There were 3 seats.
Yeah, and he estimated they had to be how big?
Like what you think of as like a little gray alien, man, 3-4 feet.
Right.
He said they looked like they were made for children.
The seats.
Yeah, and so look, and every time I try to be like dismiss Bob myself, there's something that creeps in my mind. I'm like, hold on. Like I find out that he was telling the truth. Like recently, I had it verified that he did work at Area 51. Like I know I had a guy. I found the guy after 30 years that he wouldn't talk with George, the guy that did his security clearance.
Mm-hmm.
I found him. I talked to him multiple times about this, and he did clearance for Bob for the test site. But even more recently, from people that have position to access that information, it was confirmed. I just want you to know, he worked out there. Now, I have people that were out there that saw him on a Janet flight. Bob worked out there.
And a Janet flight is those unmarked planes that would leave from the Vegas airport and head into Area 51.
Right. And so here's the deal, man. Like, it's the cumulative evidence about Bob that I, as a friend of his, like I have no reason to doubt him. And all the evidence tells me that it happened exactly like he said. And he's explaining it best of his ability. And to his own detriment, actually, before coming on your show, man, he's probably the most hated dude. For some reason, people go crazy about him. They either love him or hate him.
Well, I think your documentary turned to people's opinions about him as well.
Thank you, brother.
But then having him on, I mean, some people still call bullshit. They think like his migraines were convenient.
Oh, come on. You saw
But he was having them. He was having him in the green room before we started going on. He was very nervous about doing it.
Of course. He'd been beat up his whole life about this shit. I gave him McDonald's before, and I think his wife was super pissed at me, and I was like, you give him a salad. No, he gets really like crushing migraines, but people that are going to call bullshit on that, we're talking about fucking UFOs. If you're going to call bullshit on a migraine, what are you even listening for?
I didn't feel bullshit.
It wasn't
I felt like the whole thing was uncomfortable for him, for sure. But it didn't seem like he was lying. But, look, some people that are really good at liars. But usually when you're really good at lying, you lie about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a consistency in people's lives. And the deeper I got in, chilling with his mom, chilling with his family, chilling with friends that have known him forever, new friends, every single person. And he doesn't talk to him about UFOs, by the way. like all that. So he never talks about that. Just normal life situations.
Right.
The one thing they all said to me, Bob wouldn't waste his fucking time with making up a story, and he'd probably make up a better one. That in the rest, he would. And Bob always says that. He goes, man, I wish I could fill the voids for people. He goes, it's a horrible fucking story, but it happens to be what happened.
Right.
If I was making one up, he goes, man, I got some other cool ideas. Like, you know what I mean?
Right, of course. And so it's like if you're a liar, you generally lie a lot. Like liars don't just lie one time in their life, and then you catch them. They're inconsistent. Like he was lying long before there was an internet. I mean, excuse me, he was telling the story long before there was an internet. So if he was lying, like in the late 80s, like there would be inconsistencies in his story. Like he would forget how he said it. He would fuck something up, or
dude, for the research I did this for the documentary, like I told him, you got to give me full access to your life, dude. Like boxes, whatever. Don't open them. Let me get all your tapes, everything. I was shocked. Like people, if they're trying something, they're real careful around you. You know, just that was not my experience. But here's my other thing: is like, do we have to believe one single person to understand that this is? Yeah, this is a real phenomenon.
No, but he's one of the more interesting cases because if he's telling the truth, that means that the government has been working on these things for decades and decades, and that they have gotten themselves in this pickle where they can't publicly disclose what they know and what they have access to because they've had all these people work on these things secretly, and they sort of have a long history of hiding information.
Right. Now think this, right? Like I've been down this path myself mentally. I happen to know that I happen to trust that there was a reverse engineering project separate from Lazar and everything he told us, right? It's a separate thing from a Russian UFO crash that dealt with laser weaponry. There was a derivative exploitation project on the laser as a weapon. I know somebody that worked in that program. I feel it to be a true story. Imagine the derivative technology that you could get from something like highly advanced, just working on it. You're not going to be able to make a UFO because the material science, we haven't caught up yet how to perfectly layer atoms to make the
metallurgy.
Yeah. We will one day have that ability. But our material science is what I think holds us up from like making a craft, right? But what can we learn from one of these pieces of technology? And my ending is a fucking shit ton of derivative technologies have come from looking at these advanced materials.
That was always the assertion. That was the thing that the American Computer Company, do you remember?
I've heard a lot of stories that they've leaked things to private industry. I mean, fuck, I would do that.
This is
UFO
weird.
landing is fact, not fantasy, the Russians insist.
This is
This
1989.
is from 1989, the New York Times.
So
Wow.
Read the beginning of this.
I like Jamie just goes, this is weird.
It's not a joke, nor a hoax, nor a sign of mental instability, nor an attempt to drum up local tourism by drawing the curious, the Soviet press agency TASS insisted today in discussions of what it called an extraterrestrial visit to southern Russia. Residents of the city of, how do you say that? Voronezh. How do you say it?
I don't know. You did.
Voronezh?
I don't know, man.
It's Voronezh. Good luck with that. Insisted today that lanky, three-eyed extraterrestrial creatures had indeed landed in a local park and gone for a stroll, and that a seemingly fantastic report about the event carried Monday by the official press agency TASS was absolutely true. It was not an optical illusion, said Lieutenant Sergei A. Matveyev of the Voronezh, however you say that, district police station, who said in a telephone interview that he saw the landing of the UFO on September 27th. Lieutenant Matveyev confessed that he had not actually seen the aliens, but that he saw the spaceship, and that it was certainly a body flying in the sky, moving noiselessly at a very high speed and a very low altitude. He said anything is possible. To be honest, Lieutenant Matveyev said he was a little skeptical himself when he first saw the object. I thought I must be really tired, but I rubbed my eyes and it didn't go away. And then I figured in this day and age, anything is possible. Isn't that funny? 1989, in this day and age. Using the sensational tone that has lately infected the once staid TASS, the press agency today provided more details of the UFO landing in Voronezh, a city of some 300 miles southeast of Moscow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it stands to reason that we know that there are machines, right? We know they can do things that we're incapable of creating right now. Like, there's got to be somebody controlling them.
Look at this. Look at this.
What?
A three-eyed creature about 9 feet tall and fashionably dressed in silvery overalls and bronze boots with a disc on its chest disappeared, then landed and came out for a promenade with a companion and a robot. The aliens seemed to communicate with each other, producing the mysterious appearance of a shiny triangle, and activated the robot with a touch. Huh. It's so hard, you know. You're dealing with like people. I saw this, like who
yeah. I deal a lot of this, you know, like talking to people about it. You actually said something to me one time that really struck me about this. I called you, or we were talking on the phone, frustrated, and I said, I can't wrap my head around if this is true. Why there's so much contact? Why there's so many types of crafts? Like, we could go to the moon, you know, with like one satellite in like 2 weeks if we had to do it. And you said to me, maybe it's fucking get here. You said that to me, and it made me think, if maybe it is just easy to get here, whatever these things are, maybe they're not from far away.
Well, or maybe it doesn't matter if they're from far away, because their ability to transcend space is very different than what we understand. Like, if you talk to someone from the 1400s and said, you know, I live in California, but I want to visit Italy, they'd be like,
yeah, right.
How the fuck are you going to visit Italy?
Yeah.
You going to get in a boat for a month? Like, what are you going to do? How much food do you have? You going to get scurvy?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? But today, you're like, oh, yeah, of course you are. You're like, I'm going to go to Hawaii. Of course you are. You don't have to worry about rowing out there for 4 months. No, you're just going to go. You're going to fly. Me and the family, we're going to go to Maui. It's going to be great. It's like our version of travel is so radically different than people that lived 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. What is it like 1,000 years from now? Well, it might be radically different to the point where you can just visit extraterrestrial planets.
Maybe it would be as simple as just I make that joke. They like our top hats, kimonos, and cupcakes. They just fucking love in here. We're really cool to watch. You know, maybe.
It could that it's a part of scientific inquiry. It could be they're gardeners. They're coming back to see how their crops are growing.
Right. Or maybe a combination. If it's easy for one group, maybe it's easy for a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, right? It's in the journal of like cosmology or something. I don't know. I'm going to fuck that up. Hal Puthoff. He lives out here in Austin. He just published a peer-reviewed paper, I think, about the idea maybe they're from here.
From here, so
like as if
I've heard that name before. How do I know?
Yeah, through so many things. Like, he was back in the day working for the Stanford Research Institute studying remote viewing, and like this guy's always been kind of well, you say, well, you know what? That's kind of the funnest shit, right? Like, you get paid to study consciousness. Yeah, do it, you know. So, but you know, he's had access to a lot of information because of that. So it's one of the people when he speaks, I listen. Right? What does he have to say about it? He wrote this paper, and he wrote it a long time ago and kind of worked on it, I guess, but it was published yesterday in a scientific journal, and it proposes this idea of the ultra-terrestrial, so like something that's been here a long time, maybe like aliens that got here and got stuck, or a civilization that was so advanced and there was some world catastrophe, so it hit itself and now just kind of lives here with us, and maybe they have investment that we don't fuck up the planet, that we don't blow ourselves up. You know, maybe that's... Maybe they have some investment other than your crop theory, you know, the idea that we're just a commodity.
Well, I don't think we're necessarily a commodity, but I don't think we would have a problem with going to a planet and planting life. Like, imagine if we found a planet and it's like Earth of 3 billion years ago, right? There's like some plant life and some fungus, but there's no animal life, no marine life. And we just planted life there and monitored it and watched it grow and evolve. And maybe they have an understanding of there's a process. Maybe there's a process that, like I said, process, not process.
I like that.
Right, like I'm from
super
England.
fancy, man.
Maybe there's some sort of process where they understand that all life takes a very specific path, and that is a path of increasing complexity, right? If you want to really simplify life on Earth, you would go back to the earliest form of life, which is single-celled organisms, right? Well, why did single-celled organisms become multi-celled organisms? Because they're complexifying. They're becoming more complex. And then they ultimately become hominids that create tools, and they ultimately lead to the industrial age, and they ultimately lead to the technological age that we find ourselves in right now. The thing that they have that's clear is it's constantly a path of ever increasing complexity. Now, when you look at the work of Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and Dr. Robert Schoch and all the people that have studied ancient civilizations and the possibility that there's been a reset along the way, it seems that perhaps there's been some periods of great growth and then some sort of cataclysmic disasters, asteroid impacts and the like, that has sent civilization back down, and then it rebuilds back up again. But it always rebuilds back up again. Mm-hmm. It always seems to be on the path of ever-increasing complexity and constant innovation, at least amongst the most sophisticated of creatures, which we like to think of ourselves as. Maybe that is just a course in the universe for life. Maybe all life follows that course.
And we're biologically developing, too. I mean, we're evolving, so... You want to hear something fucking crazy?
Yes.
Okay. This morning, I was talking with a guy named Gary Nolan. Have you ever heard his name?
I have.
Yeah. So he, Stanford professor, he's, been working for 10 years studying MRIs of the brains of people like pilots who have had close encounters. And what they found over this 10-year study, there was a CIA, but he just openly talks about it now. It's all out in the open, which is cool. There was damage. Like, I've seen the images, some of them. There's damage to the brain when people get close proximity to one of these power sources. Like when they get close to it.
Damage.
Yeah, fucking white matter damage to their brains from in close proximity to a UFO or UAP.
Like, say, close. Are you talking like Commander David Fravor close? Ground?
There was some ground. Close. Like there's an encounter where it's... Like, let's just say you could throw a rock at it. How about that?
Right. Did Commander Fravor go through these examinations?
Commander Fravor, that. So, basically, this study found conclusively that there is damage that occurred, not intentionally, but it's like radiation-type damage.
Can I put something?
Sure.
Maybe these people that have been examined, maybe the damage is what caused them to see these things in the first place.
Okay, let me... Now we're going to get real fucking weird, because check out what they discovered. They discovered, in doing these studies on damaged brains, that there is a part of the brain that in a lot of these UFO encounter people, their neurodensity in that area of brain is like 1 in 100. And they've found out through this study that part of the brain, that it deals with intuition, impulse decision-making. Your intuition, like hunters, right? They need like really good intuition to have, so the impulse, just knowing when to do something. They've studied it in I guess he said like a Japanese form of chess. I don't know the game.
Go?
I don't know.
Oh, that's Chinese.
I don't know. Maybe they studied it that there's neurodensity in this area when people's intuitive moves in a form of chess.
Okay.
They found out that these people are way more likely to have a UFO encounter. So it's the opposite of what you said. Damage was caused by the close proximity to the propulsion system. But what they found out is that these neural density area, I forget the name, brain, the part, they call it the brain within the brain. You could probably look it up. It's just, now, even weirder than that, I think Gary should tell you this, but even weirder than that, they found that couples are partnering who have these neural dense areas, like more than would be random.
So if they're just intelligent people.
Sure, like a smart person.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know exactly what it does, but that correlation is so interesting. So Gary was saying this morning, cool breakfast conversation, that he thinks having that neurodense area about intuition allows them to see something that's there that other people's minds would just make them ignore. That's his theory.
Well,
What's interesting, I'm reading an interview with him about this, and as he was saying everything, I'm kind of reading along. They get to this part where the brain scans look very similar to people that had the Havana syndrome, and so they were comparing people to that. And then he says he got locked out of the files because it's now a serious incident and something else.
Yeah, he said there was a lot of crossover, or people that were, because it's an intelligence community thing and military thing. And he said he saw a lot of patients with
Let's read this because this is interesting. He said, there's the question asked him, did the people who claimed they'd had an encounter, especially the pilots, describe any perceivable decrease in neurological capacity? Said, of the 100 or so patients that we looked into, about a quarter of them died from their injuries. The majority of these patients had symptomology that's basically identical to what's now called Havana syndrome. We think amongst the bucket list of cases, we had the first Havana syndrome patients. Once this turned into a national security problem with the Havana syndrome, I was locked out of the access to the files because it's now a serious potential international incident if they ever figure out who's been doing it. That still left individuals who had seen UAPs. They didn't have Havana syndrome. They had a smorgasbord of other symptoms. And it said, the next question is, how does the impact of electromagnetic frequencies factor into your hypothesis of what exactly transpired here? One of the patients, it happened on Skinwalker Ranch. Given how deep into their brain given how deep into their brain the damage went, we can actually estimate the amount of energy required in the electromagnetic waves someone aimed at them. We don't think that has anything to do with UAPs. We think that that's some sort of state actor, and again related to Havana syndrome somehow. So Havana syndrome was dismissed initially, right? And then they're recognizing that no, something is really going on, and it might be some sort of microwave or targeted attack on people, that they're experimenting on some new ability to disable people.
Yeah, it's all Department of Defense. I mean, it's obvious something is
happening. But they don't, well, at least if they do know, it's not public.
Yeah.
Right.
I information. I have no idea. It's one of those crazy things. So what we do know about UFOs, the one fucking thing we know for sure about UFOs is that they're high energy in a small amount of space. This is classically, it's been documented, the radiation effects of these when they're around. So the injuries people get, you've heard like the sunburns on one side of their face and shit, the radiation, the hair falling out.
So that's like from Closest to the Third Kind.
But that's from life.
That is, they've actually really had that sunburn on
that's
one
how
side
they that's how they made the movie so interesting, was that they took all the cases, the trace cases, the physical cases. That shit happens to people, and sometimes when they have close proximity to a UFO, they get fucked up.
Right.
It's unintentional. People think it's like the propulsion system itself or something.
Well, Walker,
Walton,
Travis Walton, rather. That was his story, that they brought him aboard the UFO to repair him.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the way he likes to look at it, or if that's what happened. I don't know.
I wonder, did they ever do a study on his brain?
I don't know.
They should, right? I mean, if that guy's telling the truth, or maybe it would be repaired because they took him aboard the craft and supposedly did some medical procedure to him.
I mean, look, we should study this stuff. I think that's the big takeaway of this moment in our history, because we're repeating history. The UFOs have had this huge wave before, and Congress was interested 50 years ago. Multi-nations were studied openly. Now we're back at this point where I feel like there's an opportunity just to be open. We should study this scientifically, man.
The problem is, I feel like even though there's people that have sightings, and even though there's some kind of metallurgy evidence, there's so little stuff. It's not like if I want to study sea turtles, I can go find the sea turtles and go study them. This is it's too hard to grasp. There's nothing there. You know what I'm saying?
You can't replicate it upon demand, which is what science requires, right?
Yeah.
There are some cool thoughts on how to do that. There have been attempts to lure in UFOs with nuclear weapons.
Really?
Yes.
It attempts to like fake that we're going to use bait them.
Bait them.
Really?
Well, we'll talk about how I know that later, but it is true. It's not, some of the people I talk with have told me about these.
Right. Told you can't talk about this?
Yeah,
or
like
you can't
the
divulge
basic,
your sources?
Yeah, there we go. The base is 14 out of 14 times or something. I might be getting that number wrong. That there was a way to bait every single time these UFOs would come in when they were transporting nuclear weapons or something like that. Now, if that information is true, then you would have a method. You would have a way to study this. Right? See, I think we're reinventing the wheel so much. Like, obviously,
doesn't always kind of seem like the most boring possible solution is usually the right one. It's like, what's the most boring thing? The most boring thing is nothing's happening, but you're imagining the dog is somehow has a telepathic link to you. Occam's the simplest, but it's also the most boring. Like, these crazy fucking UFOs. I'm sorry if you've talked about this a bunch on the podcast, but the UFOs that we're seeing, that the Navy is releasing these videos of these Tic Tacs zipping around, and it's Navy pilots. It's not the people we interviewed in that show. It's Navy pilots who are like, I don't know what the fuck this is, and I have great conversations with Uber drivers, and like we were talking about it, and this guy was like, and a lot of them are programmers and shit, and this guy was like, it's probably it's a glitch in the type of radar they're using. I think it must be a glitch. I mean, that's the most likely reality. They're not seeing it with their own eyes.
They're not?
I don't think so. I think they're just picking it up on radar, and so he's like, maybe it's a glitch, or maybe it's like,
we should find that out. Can you Google if the pilots were picking it up on radar, the pilot spotted UFO, to see if because I know some guys have spotted things with their own eyes. I know for sure some guys have.
I'm not sure of the data set. I think
it's probably relevant to the conversation, though. It's probably a good thing that we know. People listening going, what the fuck? I get super skeptical. I feel like almost like it's a plot. I don't want to go full Eddie Bravo, but I feel like when I see people talking about UFOs, I'm like, okay, what else is going on? What are you distracting me from? Mm-hmm. Is this really a big issue? I was like, is it really happening? Well, can I see it? What do you got? Got nothing? Oh, you got like some radar. You got radar from 1, 2 pilots, 3 pilots. Okay, I believe it, but I want to see more. Why do I want to see more? Like, what am I? And you'll get caught up in it. It'll chew up hours of your day.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of those guys that we ran into on that show. I felt bad for them because they didn't understand what had happened to them. They had gotten caught in this weird loop of looking for secrets and looking for mysteries to be solved and looking for hidden conspiracies, and they get caught in that. And some of that shit is real, which is part of the problem. Some of it you can come across, the Gulf of Tonkin and the Northwoods, Operation Northwoods. You can come across a bunch of them that are real and raw, and you can see how they put that together. You're like, what? You could see real crazy conspiring. Yeah. And then you can get lost and think it's everywhere.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like, dude, I was just.
What is this, Jamie? Oh, according to Day, the AAVs. What does that mean?
Is that the new UFO?
Word? How about you say UFO, you fucks?
Come on, yeah. We change UFO.
We're AAVs. We don't refer to us as UFOs. These are my pronouns. Appeared at an altitude greater than 80,000 feet, far higher than commercial or military jets typically fly. Initially, the Princeton's radar team.
It's a radar, really high processor. Prince Story is what it's called. It's like a really high processing radar system or something.
Why is it spelled Princeton? It's Prince Story.
Yeah, no, it is Princeton. It's just that apostrophe is in a weird spot.
Oh, okay. The radar team didn't believe what they were seeing, chalking up the anomalies to an equipment malfunction. But after they determined that everything was operating as it should, they began detecting instances which the AAVs, I want to know what the fuck that means, dropped with astounding speed to lower, busier airspace. Day approached the Princeton's commander about taking action. He said, I was chomping at the bit. I really wanted to intercept these things. What?
Yeah.
That's we have the fucking craziest piece of country.
I know.
Like there's an alien, man. I want to chase it. I want to catch it by the tail.
Motherfucker. I was
catch it by the tail.
Put it in a fucking
Anomalous aerial vehicles. Get the
come on.
fuck out of it.
Whoever invented that new name is an ass.
He's an asshole.
Give us a break.
I was actually the one who decided to call them AAs.
Oh, come on.
Technically, it's not an unidentified flying object.
You're not taking our fucking UFOs, man. I'm gonna fight that.
What is it again? What is the exact phrase?
Anomalous aerial vehicle.
Anomalous aerial vehicle.
It's an AAV.
You're an asshole.
It's
anomalous. It's an anomaly.
I want to propose a new name for UFOs. Anonymous.
$1 billion study. Two fighters were diverted to intercept one of the strange objects. When they first arrived on the scene, the pilots didn't see any flying objects, but they did observe what the lead pilot, Commander David Fravor, later referred to as a disturbance in the ocean. The water was churning with white waves breaking over what looked like a large object just under the surface.
Yeah.
Then they noticed one of the objects flying about 50 feet above the water. Fravor, the commander of the elite Black Aces Squadron, this is a goddamn Nicolas Cage movie, who is a Top Gun program graduate with more than 16 years of flying experience, described it as about 40 feet long, shaped like a Tic-Tac candy, with no obvious means of propulsion. It's white. It has no wings. It has no rotors. I go, holy shit, what is that?
Dude, the guy, whoever the company is that makes Tic Tacs, they were like, yes, all them Tic Tacs. It's free publicity.
Totally. Tic Tac is the one sponsoring this whole deal.
You think it is?
Yeah, man. People are buying Tic Tacs right now. Listen to this. You just say Tic Tac enough. You're like, you remember those old subliminal things you used to do in movie theaters when you're watching a movie and it'd say hungry, eat popcorn. Like every 100th frame they would stick like hungry, eat popcorn. They would put subliminal text on the screen. You'd be like, damn, I want some popcorn. If you just say Tic Tacs, people are buying Tic Tacs right now.
Well, we do know that pilot's got great breath, right? I mean, that's a Tic Tac man. If the first time you see a UFO, the first thing that pops into your head is it looks like a mint. That's nuts. There had to be other ways to describe it.
He's got some Tic Tacs, bro, for sure.
I Googled Tic Tac after he said that because I couldn't remember if they were square or if they were like,
They look like I would expect a good UFO to look like.
Yeah. Kind of boring.
Yeah. Like super Apple-like. Like if Apple made a UFO.
Yeah. It's like a pretty sleek.
Yeah.
But the going into the ocean part is the part I like the best because that kind of lines up with hollow Earth theory and like that maybe like they're flying down. In the center of the Earth.
Of course, base in the Earth. Why wouldn't you have a base in the ocean? We never go there. Do you ever fly over? I was just in Hawaii. You fly over 5 hours of water. It's just water.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's that Strava app thing. I feel like we've talked about literally everything. You know the Strava app? Okay, good. It's great, man. I love that I have to think I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. The heat maps, the Strava heat maps that seem to show people walking under the ocean and stuff.
Walking?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, so yeah, because like Strava, it's like I think it was Strava, right? It was like a way for you to track your steps. And some people apparently were in some bases in the Arctic or in the ocean walking around. And it showed up before they could like turn that function off for top secret facilities, like the places they blur out on Google Maps.
So do you think there's like a military base under the water somewhere where submarines go?
God, man, I want to think that, but I'm
like
always...
in that movie, The Meg?
Yeah, I think it's probably a technical error, but fuck, maybe. I mean... I don't know. It's like the implication of these Tic Tacs and all of it, if you really want to like, the first to me, the most obvious one, minus the churning water evidence, is that it's some kind of equipment malfunction.
Well, it's also that they have an unlimited budget for black ops.
Yeah.
We don't know what that number is.
That's right.
We don't get to know.
Yeah.
Right? All that weird shit they do when they're making stealth bombers and all that Area 51 stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how much money goes to that? Like, what is the number? Let's Google this. How much does the U.S. spend on black ops?
I was going to bring this up in the middle of what you guys are talking. There's a program here that was going on. The AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was going on and had a
just
budget.
The AATIP. Yeah. I'm going to out of your money, but I'm just going to use the AATIP.
$22 million is what their budget was in 2012, and that said that doesn't go on, but apparently it does. Luis Elizondo says it was still operating, and he is part of.
So they spent $2 million to see if the UFOs were a threat.
A year.
And then there's the Stars Academy.
Yeah,
that's Tom DeLonge stuff.
Yeah. So some of it's still going on.
Listen. I'm fucking rooting for it. I want it to be real.
Hopefully, it all comes out and people can legally talk about it at some point. But
can you talk about it without?
I know there's been multiple contact events, like straight up contact events. One of them is revealed in the film, actually, but there are more. There was this. Several of the people in my film talk about an event that happened at Hallerman Air Force Base where 2 non-human crafts approached the base. One landed. Beings walked out and interacted with Air Force officials and CIA officials. And a couple people go on the record talking about that in the film. But there have been other events, I've been told.
How are those beings described?
They were described as tall, slender, humanoid. And the another thing that I heard that gave me chills was that someone involved with a recovery interacted with a non-human being that was dying and heard thoughts in his head that said, you humans don't know your full potential. And that was said to me by a very senior, older guy from the intelligence community. And I thought that was pretty incredible. Also, just the extent to which the legacy program is real. This isn't like 50 guys sitting in a quiet, dark room. You're talking about a massive program with thousands of people going to work every day and dealing with this. And to me, that is mind-blowing, Yeah. The guy next to you at the pizza place, on a Saturday night might be working on this during the day,
Right.
The guy who, the other father at your kid's Little League game.
Yeah.
This is what he deals with, right? The fact that is a thing, and, we had a similar dynamic for the Manhattan Project. There were all these people working on it, and they kept it secret, right? And their neighbors and friends didn't know. But this is that on steroids. So, after the Manhattan Project, which was had a budget in the billions, this situation arose, and it had to be even more secret than the Manhattan Project, because the Manhattan Project, we found out in hindsight, leaked, right? There were moles.
Right.
So we needed to make this even more secret and give it more money and more resources and more, counter intel.
And more threats.
Which is counter intel, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, threats if you reveal those secrets. But it's like the more this stuff gets discussed, the more I go back to what Lazar said. Because what Lazar is describing from the 1980s is exactly what these people are saying now. They've had these things. They've been trying to figure them out. They've been working on them. At least in the 1980s, they hadn't totally cracked it yet. But they did know how to operate them, and that they would do these tests. But everything was so compartmentalized. He said he wasn't allowed to talk to the metallurgist. There was different people that were assigned to it.
Yeah.
What they were assigned to do was to try to figure out how the propulsion system worked.
Yeah.
And then there was other people that were assigned to try to figure out how the metallurgy was formed. Because whatever it was seemed like it was 3D printed. It didn't have any seams.
Yeah.
And when he talks about it, it sounds exactly like what people are talking about today, which is really bananas.
Yeah.
Because this is late 1980s, and he's the first guy to crack through with this stuff.
Yeah. Everything is so, in that secret program, everything is so siloed out where you could have one team of defense contractors working on one thing. They're not even told it's from an alien spacecraft. They're just told, here's the thing. It might be Russia. It might be China. Tell us how it works.
Right.
They're just kept in a little bubble. And one of the issues now is that everything's become so overclassified and so siloed that it's actually hurting progress. And that's a lot of the scientists in my film are voicing that. And one of the other things I learned recently that isn't in the film, Jay Stratton, who ran the UAP task force, he told me that during that time, he had started a talk with one of the senior scientists at Lockheed, who was frustrated by how overclassified everything was. It even made it hard for the defense contractors to get the right manpower and brains on it, because not everyone can be cleared to do the work, right? There's all these like red tape hurdles to progress, right? And so they had made a plan to move one of the crafts that had been recovered that was in Lockheed's possession into the possession of the UAP task force. And then the task force was going to be able to put more brain power towards it. And then the head of science and technology at the CIA shut it down in the middle of the transfer. They had actually secured a hangar on a military base and prepped it to be a classified hangar that would hold this craft, and they were stopped. So the issue of overclassification.
Did they know what happened after that?
Yeah, the CIA just shut the whole transaction down, and the craft stayed in Lockheed's possession. And then that particular leader within Lockheed died about 2 years later. So the effort kind of stopped. He had cancer. The overclassification is definitely a hurdle for this. And our competitors don't necessarily have that. Like there's no free will in China. She can just be like, hey, you're the smartest guy graduating your class. You're going to go work for the nation on this,
Right, period.
And here, the problem is no one knows it's real. One of the things I hope the film changes is it makes the scientific community know that this is a valid area of inquiry. This is real. It's a real situation. And there's a ton of problems for the next generation of engineers and scientists to solve, And so hopefully it inspires them and helps us make progress, because there's a lot of progress that could be made here.
Well, it certainly seems like it, but it's like one of the things that you guys propose in the film that I think maybe the only way forward is some sort of a mass amnesty to all these people that did lie to Congress and probably misappropriated funds and maybe stole a little bit here and there. Like if that doesn't happen, no one is going to push to make this public. No one's going to push for like actual full disclosure, because it leaves them too exposed. And if they do have the kind of power that they must have to be running an organization of thousands of people working on something with unbelievable amounts of money being transferred to these programs, they don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
Like this is like it's a honeypot that they're drawing from, right? And they're probably still taking too much, or there's no oversight. You're still lying to Congress. And you'd have to have some national security amnesty program saying, look, in the interest of national security, it's critically important that we get all of our best people working on this. The only way we're ever going to really do that is to completely reveal that this is actually really happening. This is real crafts from somewhere or something. We have them. We'll tell you where we have them. And I think right now, people wouldn't even freak out, because I would think that people would freak out if there was some sort of official narrative of disclosure. But that's sort of been breached, right? The New York Times breached that in 2017.
I think this film is that. I mean, this is 34 credible people putting their reputation and name on the line, which I honestly, Joe, I think it's stronger evidence than any video or photo. These days, you could put a 4K video of a giant craft over Vandenberg, and half the human population will say it's AI,
right,
or creating some visual effects program. But someone of note putting their name and reputation on the line, their career on the line, the rest of their lives on the line, to say this is what I know to be true. To me, that's the greatest evidence that exists. But I do think, to your point, amnesty is something that's gonna have to be figured out, because while it's hard for anyone to accept letting people off the hook for wrongdoings, right? It does seem like it's in the best interest of the bigger picture.
100%.
Because these people just aren't good. They have no incentive to come forward with what they've learned. And so, to quote Rubio in the film, he says, look, this is not a endeavor to go and punish anyone, but we need to know what they learned.
Right.
And I think he's totally dead on. And,
is he in favor of some sort of an amnesty program as well?
Yeah, he says on camera in the film, he's like, I'm not trying to punish anyone. I need to know what they learned, because taxpayers paid for this, and it's in our interest to know what's going on. But the other thing that's needed is real whistleblower protection, not the whistleblower protection that's been passed so far, like much stronger legal protections, so that people like the folks I talked to, the special forces guys I talked to, were going to come forward and then decided they thought to be forfeiting their lives. You've got to change that set of circumstances. You got to make those people feel like that's not going to happen to them.
Right.
And what I think ultimately is going to have to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised, man, if it happens soon after the film comes out, I think a sitting president has to step to the microphone and say definitively, humanity's not alone in the universe. We have recovered technology of non-human origin. So have other nations. There is a high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race, and the U.S. intends to lead in this new chapter. I think that needs to happen, like a level set of basic facts, and I really do think it will happen.
Well, if that is going to happen, I think Trump might be the only guy that's willing to do something crazy.
I think it's very likely that he does that. I know that he is aware of the film. I know he's aware of what people in his administration say.
Has he watched it? You know that?
He has not watched the film, but I know he's very aware of it, and I know that they are discussing internally how they're going to react to the film publicly. And I also know that he has very recently, tasked Tulsi Gabbard with getting to the bottom of the situation and finding out for him what he needs to know that he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah. And as Rubio said in the film, Rubio says on camera, on the record, on the film, that this has been kept from sitting presidents. And he goes into detail on how that's been done and how it's the career bureaucrats in certain elements of the government that control this information and just wait presidents out and don't feel like they have a need to know.
Right. Well, there were some people that tried to find information out in the beginning of the Trump administration. Who was it? There was someone that talked about it on record and said he was told at every turn that you don't have the clearance.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing. Trump actually found out about the base facts in his last presidency and was contemplating stepping to the microphone then.
What base facts?
So Jay Stratton, who ran the task force, he says on camera in my film that he briefed that Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, asked for a briefing on the lay of the land because Trump asked him to get the briefing, and Trump had already known that the base facts that we're not alone in the universe, that there's been recovery of crashed craft, right? He knew those base facts, and he told Mnuchin that he was thinking about going public. And so Mnuchin reached out to Stratton to get a briefing, and he told Stratton that the reason he wanted the briefing is because he needed to be able to evaluate what the impact would be to the economy if the president decided to step to the mic and tell the world we're not alone. And Stratton tells the story on camera in the film, and I've heard a lot more about it off camera. So we know Trump contemplated doing this already. Now I think the release of this film and Rubio's involvement puts enough on the table that it makes it easier for him to do.
I think they would have to have some sort of a plan in place if they were going to say that, right? Like the amnesty plan, the idea behind it would have to be in place. If someone's
at least grab control of the situation and say that this is real and the U.S. intends to lead the way. Because the other factor that the White House has to keep in mind is you don't want Xi or Putin being the guy to do that.
Right.
You don't want them to have that moment, right?
Right.
Something I always think about with regards to that moment of a president stepping to the mic, when we entered the space race, Kennedy gave that big famous speech, right? He was like, we're going to lead in space, technology, space technology, like nuclear technology has no conscience of its own. It's up to man to use it for good or bad, and we're going to make sure it's used for the betterment of all mankind, and we're going to lead the way. That was his whole rallying speech, right? And it made the whole scientific community be like, we're going to help the U.S. win, rah, 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 right? I think that's needed in this race. We need all the support of the scientific community, of academia, the kids coming out of MIT. We need them putting their brain power towards this, and I think the White House knows that. And it's also that's the greatest TV moment a leader could have in the history of humanity. Step into the microphone.
Do you think Elon knows?
Look, I've seen him obviously talk to you about it. I think he knows a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think you get the contracts and the clearances you need to operate in space without some horse trading.
Yeah, when I went to SpaceX, I'm like, motherfucker, you know everything. There's no way you're launching these fucking things into space without them keying you in on exactly what's going on. He's just sly about it.
Well,
he goes, well, if they are aliens, they're certainly all subtle. That's what he says. Are they really? I don't know, man.
I think it's impossible to operate in space like he does and not be aware of everything. And also at the level he operates clearance-wise. I held a secret screening at the National Space Symposium earlier this year, which is the Super Bowl of the space industry. It's like 60 people, heavy hitters from the space industry. We didn't promote it or publicize it at all, but there were a dozen guys from SpaceX there. and they all seem very aware of everything revealed in the film.
Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah,
he's my friend, and he won't tell me.
He's a legend.
He keeps a lid on it.
He's a legend.
But how would he not know if it is? And some people have told me he knows that know he knows some things. So whatever. But the point is, people are good at keeping secrets. That's real.
100%.
Even people that aren't notoriously good at keeping secrets are good at keeping secrets when they have to be.
Do you think if you put yourself, you've interviewed Trump, do you see him doing that? Stepping to the mic and telling us the truth?
Someone talks to him about it and convinces him it's a great idea. Like if I had an hour with him.
I mean, it's literally the single, in my opinion, the single greatest moment a leader could have.
Well,
in the history of the world.
If he could be the guy that blows the lid off of it, that would definitely help with his legacy too, which I think would be a good way to convince him.
Myself have not detailed looked at the footage. However, FLIR experts and people that work with NSA have looked at it for me, and these are not lights in the distance. These are craft, very similar to what Commander Fravor talks about, without plumes, without heat signatures, non-traditional field propulsion systems. We don't have that.
And I thought they tried to, is this it right here? Is this the Mexican Air Force footage?
Yeah. So they tried to say these were lights on like an oil rig out in the water. That's been debunked.
Yeah, they tried to say fire in an oil rig, right?
No.
The 2004 Comcast video was the Mexican Air Force tracking like 6. So literally right after we come back, and I think we were getting ready to go to Fallon, and I had Comcast, and the home page comes up, and there's this video, and I go, holy cow, that looks like what we chased. And it was like 6 of these things, and they were tracked in the same area, too, right off the coast of Ensenada.
And it's not rare. There's now admitted an increased frequency. A Pentagon spokeswoman finally went off script. I was tracking the scripts for the last 2 years of what Pentagon spokespeople say about Commander Fravor's experience. Someone went off script last week in the New York Times, and she admitted there's an increased frequency of near misses because of these AAVs, anomalous aerospace vehicles. So it's pretty astounding. We're getting all these kind of revelatory moments in these little seeds that these are not ours. We don't have this. Even Elon doesn't have this. I mean, this is a propulsion system unlike anything we have. It's amazing. It's gravity propelled.
Now, that footage, when it said that there's a fleet of them, how far away are those guys where you don't see the individual objects, you only see a singular spot?
The pod is, when you get pretty narrow, it'd be like, if I put 3 people around you, I can look at you and not see the other people. So that's what the pod is doing. But the radar is seeing everything because it has an AESA radar in it, which is an electronically scanned array. So instead of like the radars we had, which did the mechanical, doing this, like old school, this thing is just a panel that sits in the front of the airplane, and through beam sharing or beam shaping, it can move and it can look all over. So we used to have what was called track while scan, so we would be able to track a target while we're still scanning. This thing has scan while it scans while it tracks. So it literally, if the radar sees you, it has basically a weapons quality solution, and it can do that on multiple targets. It's the same way the spy radar, the Aegis system works on the cruisers. It can track multiple targets and have weapons quality on all these different targets while it's still scanning a volume.
So in that image, you're seeing one individual object, but there's other objects?
Yes. The radar is seeing the object that the pod is looking at where they're talking. And when you hear the video, you hear the pilot say, dude, look at the SA page. There's a whole fleet of them. So what they're seeing is the pod is looking at the main. That's the bigger object, that the gimbal, the thing that's rotating on the screen, and there's 5 smaller things in front. So this thing's just sitting there, and then he said they turn around on the radar and start going the other way while the pod's looking at this guy just kind of rotating.
So like a mothership and smaller aircraft, something along those lines. Video of those smaller aircrafts, or just the video of the one large one?
The only thing is the target. I would highly doubt, even if they had the video, that they're going to release the radar because of classification levels.
Are you able to tell the story you told me about what was underwater with your other buddy? Because is that okay?
Yeah. So it's amazing. People come out of the woodwork when they figure out you've had this, because they don't feel alone. So I was working. I still do it, but I was doing oil and gas at the time on a contract, and one of the guys, the story came out, and he was a Navy helicopter pilot. And he comes in, he goes, dude, hey, can I talk to you? I go, what about? He goes, dude, I got to talk to you. And I said, what do you want to talk to me about? Dude, you know your UFO? He said, yeah. He goes, I had a similar experience. I said, what's that? He said, he was flying CH-53s, which is a big lift, heavy lift that the Marine Corps uses. The Navy uses it for certain. And when they go off of, for the East Coast, they do a lot of shooting. At the time, it was off of Puerto Rico. We had Roosevelt Roads that they ended up closing. But he was flying out of there. And, you got super clear being water. And they have these things, they're called BQMs. They fly around, and then when they're all done, because they'll fly towards the ships, and the ship can, they can track with the radar. And then they also do, like the ships, submarines shoot torpedoes. They're called telemetry rounds. So they gather all the data on what the torpedo is doing underwater. And then they blow ballast, and this thing will come to the surface and float, and then they go pick them up, and then they can extract all the data out of them. So they do it for both. So he said the first time they're out, and they're going to pick up this BQM. And those things, when they're flying, they're done. A pair comes out, and they got to go. They hook it up. The helo drops the swimmer in the water. He goes and hooks this whole thing up, and then they hoist the whole thing up and fly back, and then they extract the data. So he says he's sitting in the front. In helicopters, there's, a CH-53, you can actually see down by your feet, just like typical, like you got a Hawaiian ride, because you can see what you're down. So you got really good visibility out of those things, and you can stick your head out the window, too, because you're just kind of hanging out. He says he's going on there, and they're getting this thing hooked up, and as he's looking down, because they're, 50 feet above the water, he sees kind of this dark mass coming up from the depths. And they start to hoist the diver up, and they've got the BQM, and as they hoist it up, he says, and he's looking at this thing going, what the hell is that? And then it just goes back down underwater. It just once they pull the kid and the BQM out of the water, this object descends back into the depths. So he thinks, well, that was pretty weird. So he goes out, he says, not too long later, a few months later, he's out and he's picking up a torpedo. So he says they hook the diver up on the winch, and they're lowering him in, and as he's looking down, he sees this big, massive, he goes, it's not a submarine. He's seen submarines before. Once you see a submarine, you confuse it with something else. This big object, kind of circular, he says, is coming up from the depths, and he starts screaming through the intercom system to tell him to pull the diver up, and the diver's like a few feet water. So they reverse the winch, and the diver's thinking, what the hell's going on? And he's getting pulled up, and all of a sudden, he said the torpedo just got sucked down underwater, and the object just descended back down into the depths, and they never recovered the threat.
Jesus.
And this happened in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I think it is. I could probably get in touch with him and ask him. And he told me, and I'm like, where'd the torpedo go? It just got sucked down. It just went down, and then you get the people that attribute it as, something happened when it blew ballast and it got on water and sank. And he's like, it didn't sink. He goes, it literally looked like it got sucked down. The only reason they did the New York Times stuff, they talked to him, but because the incident was 90s, they wanted something, newer. So they didn't include it, but I know they talked to him about it.
Now, what was the other footage that we were watching? There was the first footage that Jamie pulled up that wasn't the gimbal footage.
Mm-hmm.
That was
the Go Fast.
The Go Fast. What is that?
That's it actually looks more like a Tic Tac, but they saw it going across the water, and they're just grabbing a lock. So they're seeing this with their eyes, and he gets the FLIR to lock on it. And you hear the kid go, "Oh, I got it," because he gets the auto track, and it's just something screaming across the surface of the water. So,
and this is in the same area?
This is East Coast, yeah. This is the same time frame as the gimbal video.
The idea that these are birds, or the idea that this is a radar glitch, or somebody said pilot error, like on a clear blue day, Commander Fravor has nerves. I mean, that kind of thing that people have said on your show to you, that, these are explanations that make sense.
Who said that?
I don't want to say their names.
Mick West?
Yeah, sure.
Mick believes everything. Like, every single thing that's ever happened has a rational explanation for it.
so the probability that, all the radars went off at the wrong time, Commander Fravor, had nerves, that all the other pilots up there with him, that, this thing shot off like a gun instantly, like that was somehow perfectly coordinated. That's a conspiracy. That's a fabrication. Probably Occam's razors, the events happened exactly like we're being told.
Yeah, for us, and I'll go back to the beginning of the story of, the other pilot who was brand new. She had been in the squadron for 4 months, 5 months. So she was still working on her initial qual on the airplane. And, so she gets we get the real world vector, and it's like, okay, real world vector, cool. I'm going to get to do something real, exciting. Then you see the water, and you think, oh, something's sinking, because it's kind of that shape of an airplane, that cross type. So now it's, oh crap, now it's search and rescue. We got to go down and see, because there's people, and we are sympathetic. And to the Tic Tac, and as soon as the Tic Tac, it's, holy shit, what is that? And when you get, some people get very emotional when you talk about it. Because for me, it was like, for her, when you talk to her, she has a disdain for some of the leadership that didn't tell us that these things were. You know, they're here now. We're getting vectored because we were the first time the manned airplanes had been airborne when one of these things showed up. That no one even gave us a brief that, hey, we're seeing these objects out here for the last 2 weeks. They're just kind of, you might want to know they're out there. And they never told us. No one knew these things existed besides radar operators. And the radar operators didn't know what they were. They just knew they were seeing, you know, so and there's a lot of stuff that, you know, that it flew around and it came around me and it didn't do any of that. The story that I gave you is just relatively benign. But it was, you know, it's an interesting experience.
Incidents that they reported were taking place before you saw that Tic Tac encounter.
Yeah,
they were taking place over a period of how many weeks?
2 weeks. We went out at the beginning of the month for this 2 week at sea period. We pulled in for Thanksgiving, but other than that, we were out till I think December 21st is when we shipped back in. Besides pulling in for the 3 days at Thanksgiving. So for the 2 weeks prior, so this was on the 14th, and we went out at the beginning of the month. So about 2 weeks, they'd been watching these things come down, go up, come down, go up. But it was always when we were not flying, which is really probably like the midnight time frame until early in the morning the next, you know, till noon the next day. And then we just happened to go. And if you think about it, you know, I laugh at, you know, if there was some little green man flying around in that Tic Tac, he probably got back to the mothership and got yelled at for being seen. But you're like, oh my God, you let him see you.
This UFO disclosure thing comes out. This guy,
didn't it just come out today?
Yesterday.
A whistleblower?
Yeah. This gentleman, David Grush. And David Grush, let's find out who he is and what his credentials were. But he essentially said that they are illegally hiding it from Congress. And they are illegally hiding it from the American people, but they have off-world craft in possession.
Who's the they in that?
It's somewhere. Well, it's in the things they're saying is. Oh, here, let's read it. Air Force veteran has made a bombshell claim that U.S. government has recovered materials that could be proof of UFOs, including an intact craft of non-human origin, but they are keeping it a secret from the public. David Charles Grush, a veteran and former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and National Reconnaissance Office, has blown the whistle on this information, speaking with several news outlets about the crafts. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. Call it a spacecraft if you will, non-human exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed, Mr. Grush told News Nation. Mr. Grush served as senior technical advisor for the unidentified aerial phenomenon analysis with top secret compartmented information clearance, according to the debrief. He also served as a senior intelligence officer in the National Reconnaissance Office. In total, he has 14 years of experience serving as an intelligence officer. So here's the question. Is that a PSYOP? Is this, we've got a non-human craft, a PSYOP? Like if I was the government and I was working on some shit and I didn't want China or Russia to know about it and we could do some wild shit, some anti-gravity shit. I thought it was totally nuts and I thought at first I was being deceived. But it was a ruse, Mr. Grush told News Nation. People started to confide in me, approach me. I have plenty of senior former intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me that they were part of a program. He told the debrief that he's prepared many briefs on UFOs for Congress, but last year decided to provide hours of classified information and data about the Materials Recovery Program. Mr. Grush claims the Materials Recovery Program was shielded from proper congressional oversight. So this is what Bob Lazar has been saying forever. This guy's saying that it was going on for 80 years. So like this brings us back to the 1940s. I mean, this means like Roswell. This is what they were talking about when all the people that were at Roswell, that were at the actual crash site and the actual claim they saw bodies. And then there was two different aircrafts that were flown in to Roswell, New Mexico, and took the wreckage and flew it in two different aircrafts in case one of them crashed, supposedly. And they flew them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This has all been documented. Now, if that was a balloon, it was just a balloon, why would they go through such lengths? And why are there so many people that have so many stories about Roswell? Why are there so many hokey, goofy fucking explanations of what happened, including it was a parachute and there was human dummies, like crash test dummies that were evolved. They were crash testing things. Like Not according to the people that were there. What they saw was materials that could not be explained, insanely light. You would crumple it, and it would immediately flex back to the stage that was out there. They found things that had some sort of writing that resembled hieroglyphs. They don't. I mean, these people, they could have all been full of shit. It could have been just some story. Something happened, and everybody told everybody, and you're playing a game of telephone, and the next thing you know, it's this wild story of bodies and little tiny caskets, and and people being silenced. But the problem is, the story is very universal. When they're all telling the story, it's real similar, man. It's a real, and the guy who was a part of the initial release, he went public afterwards and said that stuff that we showed the American public when they were sitting there. I forget the gentleman's name. But he was showing like a piece of a weather balloon, and they had this smile on their face. This is one day after I think it was the Roswell Daily Record. They had the front page of the newspaper. The government has recovered a crashed UFO.
I mean, I don't know how big the universe is.
This is the gentleman. So let's play this.
Do you mean? These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
That's it. Where's the whole interview?
Probably that website.
See if you can find. Is that something you have to sign up for? What is it? What is it?
News Nation.
News Nation. Meanwhile, that might be a 100% government-controlled organization that just promotes propaganda. And that guy's working for them. You got to think about all these things.
I know.
News Nation. Who are these folks?
Chris Cuomo ended up.
Oh, interesting. He's their fucking centerpiece. Look at that.
Yes, he is.
He looks a little tanner than usual.
Can we save ourselves from ourselves, Joe? To go back to the humanity sliding towards the brink?
It's possible.
Oh, here's the 10-minute interview.
Okay, let's hear this guy.
How much?
Just play it. Let's just see what's up.
Military program that has reportedly found wreckage of fully intact exclusive
on the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grush alleges the U.S. government...
Does it keep going? What else does it say?
The entire American public has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well, naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
It's also harder for people to wrap their minds around the concept.
I don't know, man.
He might be full of shit.
Well,
he might be.
I'm fascinated.
Agent. He might be a government agent.
Well, to unpack that a little bit, so there are. I can only speak to it from a military perspective. So he was in the Air Force. There are programs They're covered programs, or there are programs that you're not going to get read into. And just because you're read into one program doesn't mean you're going to get read into other ones. So his clearance, TSSCI, is not an uncommon one. It's the same clearance that I held that I was in. Having a clearance, there's two things, right? You have to have the clearance, and then you have to have the need to know. So you could view him saying we were not read into another program as something that would be conspiratorial, or you could view it as like one program didn't necessarily have something to do with the other one, so there's no need to actually read them in. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm fascinated to understand. It sounds like what he is saying is that the United States military is nesting that program, the program to go recover, and I would be fascinated to know how they are doing that invisibly. I mean, we're talking aircraft, we're talking identification early on, aircraft moving teams, and this, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of shit.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
But there are people that are coming forward. So it's not like
Sure.
they're totally being quiet, which is sort of
They're
in
coming
line
forward
with
with a
human
piece.
nature.
They're coming forward with a piece of a pie. I'd be
Right.
fascinated how all the pieces of the pie fed together. I'm not saying what he's saying isn't true.
Safe to say?
Safe to say, but it's not so much just the UFO itself. I mean, I don't call them that anymore. We call these advanced aerial threats. They're different. But
Threats?
You honed in on a word we weren't supposed to really get into here in the first part of the show.
Did you have a plan?
I have a very long plan, detailed plan. We're going to start with my body. We're just going to talk about my body for a lot. And
Okay, we'll talk about what comes to your body.
well, my body is interesting. It's unique, and it changes shape. And what I've noticed is it's just changing.
Yeah, it's getting
wider.
depending upon what you put in it.
Oh, can I cuss?
Yeah, for sure. We're on the internet.
You're so fucking fit. You shook my hand. I think you're gonna break my hand.
I didn't mean to.
Don't be so
I was
handsome
just
and
shaking your
strong.
hand. It was a handshake.
I know. Well, it's one of those power moves. You ever see when Trump shakes people's hands and he pulls them in and he's
Oh
like,
yeah,
like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean to do that. Just meant to shake your hand like a man.
I took it as like, know your place, motherfucker.
Oh,
this
that's
is my
weird.
show.
I did that.
No, I'm just joking.
Interesting. So, when did you get obsessed with this aerial threat thing? And why do you threats?
We'll get into that, I guess.
Okay.
But I got into it when I was in junior high. But for some weird reason, I had like some time off and I went to the school library in like 7th grade, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna read some boring shit. What am I gonna read? And I saw this one book, and it had a picture of the Loch Ness Monster and like a UFO. I'm all, that looks cool. And I read that, and I was like, holy cow, these are like real. It wasn't all science fiction. I mean, the way the book was laid out, I was like, these are like real events. I'm all, there's no way, really. And then when the band started doing its thing in the back of the van, there were no like smartphones, so we were buying books, and I would just lay there. We'd have like 20-hour drives, and so I started buying books on the UFO phenomenon, and I was. Once you do that, it's a black hole. You're done.
Yeah, definitely a rabbit hole. You get sucked to it. At my house, I have a framed poster that's the cover of the Roswell Daily News.
Yeah,
that shows the day after the Roswell crash, where it says that the Air Force came and recovered the wreckage, and the whole deal. I've been obsessed with this shit since I was a little kid.
Yeah, I think that's by design. I think that this generation was meant to have this stuff come out. But, I can't prove that. That's just my feeling.
What?
Because of what you said, there's a lot of people. I don't believe that some of the events happened on accident. I think that there's been a lot of events that are on purpose. Some have been for show. Some have been for, there's a variety of reasons. But I think a lot of it is a control system that's really pushing humanity in a specific direction. And
so like they've got a time frame where they've had these events take place. Is that what you think?
And they also time travel, which is different than what people think in like a movie where they sit in a machine and all of a sudden you're in the 1930s and you got to go save humanity. When you use the technology, there's a time difference between what they're doing inside of an artificially created bubble of gravity of sorts, and then what's on the outside. So if you're on the inside of one of those machines, everything would be skewed more black and white. There'd be like a red shift, and everybody would look frozen. So you literally could fly around and grab a Coke out of someone's hand and put it in someone else's hand. It's really...
Where is this from?
Well, take a wild guess. The people I'm surrounded by,
So the people you're surrounded by are telling you this? Is that what it is?
Well, I don't want to get into that, but the people I'm surrounded with and myself, are very close to this stuff. But the physics, the physicist that's a co-founder of my company, To the Star, he's a Nobel nominee. He wrote the book on plasma physics.
What's his?
Dr. Hal Puthoff. And he created remote viewing. Do you know what remote viewing is?
Yeah.
He's the creator of the CIA psychic spy program, but he also has done like really exotic, advanced forefront propulsion work for the past decades and decades. Actually, I mean, he's deep into the quantum this and that. So he's the one who actually told me about the redshift. Yeah.
And so they have experienced this physically, or is this just theoretical, or they know that it exists? Like
the technology?
Yes.
I believe that the technology not only exists, we've figured out how to play with it, but I'm not going to really get into that. That is what we're doing at my company, though. That is the announcement. So Steve Justice was head of advanced programs at the Skunk Works, and the Skunk Works are who built, the famous secret bases you hear about. Skunk Works did, the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Black, the F-117 stealth fighter, and
it's all Groom Lake out there.
That kind of stuff. And he literally was in charge of all the advanced programs. So, you got the boss and you got him. And he just finished his career over there within the past 2 months, I think it is. And he was on stage with me when we came out and said, we're going to be building one of these things.
So when you say that all this technology exists, have they explained this to you, or have you seen it physically?
I haven't seen anything physically like that. I wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere if that does or doesn't exist.
So they've just explained to you that this exists, and that is in the hands of the U.S. government.
I think no. I don't get into that kind of stuff, but if you don't mind.
Well, why is it that you want to not get into certain things?
I want to I represent more than myself these days.
Right.
So I definitely have to watch what I say.
Well, who do you represent when you say you represent more than yourself?
The team that I'm with. So when you look at the people that are a part of my company, it's Undersecretary of Defense and Senior Intelligence Service.
Is there a list of people that we could see?
Yeah. I thought you guys would have had that.
Yeah, but I mean, is there a list where folks could see it online?
Yeah, they can go to tothestarsacademy.com and scroll down, and you'll be able to see who they all are. So
how did you get linked up with all these people?
That story might be a better way to start, because a lot of people don't know this part of the story, and I think you're going to find it pretty odd as well. But okay, so we'll back up a couple years. So I was obviously, I started the band Blink, and Blink went places, and then, but we always had a weird relationship, like most bands, and we also thought that we wouldn't be big, so we started companies on the side, and I had a company that incubated a lot of small startups, like software and apparel and hardcore skate surf companies and stuff like that. Well, I learned a lot from that, and I pulled out an entertainment startup, The Stars. And I knew I was going to be doing kind of like science fiction franchised stories, just like Disney, but science fiction for adults. And what that means is, I make a story, I title it, I brand it, and I put out the book, and I put out the merchandise, and I go make a movie, and it's a vertically integrated kind of model. Well, one of the stories I knew I wanted to put out was Secret Missions, which was kind of a historical fiction, but based on real events about the UFO phenomenon. But I also knew that I knew shit that most people don't know, because I've studied it for so long, and I happen to put some pieces together that most people don't put together. So before I came out with that book, and before I came out with the plan to take that, make major motion pictures and all that kind of stuff, I knew I needed to ask permission. So I flew around to places. Can't say who they were, but they listened to my pitch, and then I got a email out of nowhere that says meet us next to the Pentagon at this day and time, and I did that. And from that,
you got an email from just a random person?
No, I just can't tell you who it's from.
Okay.
And so then I go out.
Meet you in the Pentagon? So you just flew to the Pentagon?
Pentagon City, yeah. It's dude, this gets. I'll tell you when I started freaking out. There's more shit. It gets way worse. This is nothing. So that started me out near D.C. taking some other high level meetings, and there was somebody at a very high level that closed the door, looked me in the eye, and says, "Okay, I'm going to introduce you to somebody." And that person comes to San Diego, puts me on the phone, with a general, and the general is listening to my little stump speech about what I want to do with this franchise, because I definitely, I wasn't looking to like force disclosure, and I wasn't looking to be rogue and break secrets. I was like, look, I know what's going on here, and you guys are doing a kick-ass job, and I would have done the exact same thing should I have been the guy at the top that had to make some really hardcore decisions 70 years ago. So I want to support you. I think people are cynical because there's a vacuum. You guys can't say what you're doing. So all these people are just coming up with a bunch of bullshit to say, oh, they don't want us to know, or we can't handle, or it's all about oil and money and all this weird shit.
But you had put these together independently.
I did.
And based on books that you read?
Yeah, people think that like places like the CIA and the DIA, all these intelligence organizations have, a monopoly on information. They don't. They get their information from the real world too. They do have access to archives of information. They do have access to some amazing, satellite data and stuff like that. But if you're smart and you take your time, you know where to look, and you find patterns, you can pretty much put together all the same shit they can. Kind of, and that's what I did. And so when I pitched what I wanted to do, he said, come up and meet me tomorrow. And so I flew up to NASA, actually, NASA Ames, and had a 2-hour meeting there. And after 2 hours, that person says, he looks me in the eyes, I'll introduce you to someone else. And he did. And so I got on the phone with this person, and this person, go, I'm a skeptic. And then at the end of the conversation, he goes, and see me. And so I did. And that's when things really started happening. So I fly out to this airport, and I sit at a table in a restaurant at the airport. No one's in there. And this gentleman sits down, and the waiter comes up. He waves off the waiter, and he looks me in the eye and says, it was the Cold War, and we found a life form. And that's when I started shitting my pants, because I know a lot about this stuff, but you always wait to talk to somebody that is one of the inside people. You always want to have.
So he's down at a restaurant with you at the airport and tells you that they found a life form.
Yes. And everything that they did and every decision they made at the time was because of the consciousness of the Cold War.
And why has decided to meet with you at the airport?
Because the only way you meet with these people, the only way you ever would have anyone talk to you is if you can provide a service that they need. Mm-hmm. And my service was pretty interesting to them, because I said, look, you guys, you struggle with saying disclosure. You want to tell everybody everything, which I don't think everyone should know everything. And then you say they can't handle it, so don't tell them anything, And I'm like, there's a middle road there. And here's the way I would do the middle road. And it resonated with them, And so we had a pretty epic conversation for like 2 years.
Why you? Like, why? What is it about what your message was? What your idea was? I'm going to tell you some top secret shit that they've tried to keep away from the American people. Well, I mean, you take a guy who's like a big celebrity who's in a huge rock band like you, and you just say, hey, meet me in an airport. I'm going to tell you about a life form that we found during the Cold War, because you're famous or because you know things?
No, because I have a service. So it's not. It sounds easy when you play it like that, but a service. Like, what can you do for them that they need help with?
And what could you do?
Communication. They don't have a way to make a movie, a book. They don't know how. Don't have a way to make documentaries. They don't have a go on a big show like this and communicate with young people. They don't do that, and nor should they. They look at. You got to look at what they're doing.
So they look for a spokesperson role.
I wouldn't say spokesperson role, communication role. It makes more sense.
So they would some information to you, and you would get it out to people. And now, why wouldn't they do it themselves? Because they wouldn't have the same platform.
They don't
access to the same platform that you would have.
And the other reason is people have tried to do movies and stuff like this, but none of them was fortunate enough to know the core story, and most people don't.
Let's explain that then, if you don't mind going back. Like, when you said that you were able to put things together that other people weren't. What are those things?
Essentially, it's the book Secret Machines, where you have a lot of private finance, you have some world bankers, and you have a lot of people internationally working together to figure out a plan of how to push back against something that's been coming here for a very long time, but using off-the-books finances and using mechanisms that we're not totally aware exist. And what people have to realize is, the UFO phenomenon isn't a phenomenon. The universe is fucking gigantic, and there's life everywhere. every fucking where. And there's a lot of life that's way advanced than we are. And just like Voyager left our solar system, a little dinky satellite from the 70s, and just like my company's going to be building, this electromagnetic craft that really can do the same thing to time that I've been telling you about. Other civilizations have that too, which means you can traverse distances of space. And what you have to think about is what happened when we first discovered that, and what did we do about it? And there's no, you got to look at 47 in a very peculiar way. 90 days after the Roswell event, CIA was created, the Air Force was separated from the Army, the National Security Act was created, and all those mechanisms to start learning more and to start getting private industry off the ground.
But that had nothing to do with World War II. You think it had to do with aliens?
Oh, I absolutely think it. Well, both, because what I believe crashed at Roswell was, I believe it was German from Argentina, but it had hallmarks and technology based on alien technology. So we put out a story saying it's alien, put out a story saying it's a weather balloon. But the real thing it was, we didn't want anyone to guess. And that's why we put those two things out there. And that's kind of how they do it. I think they did that with the moon. It's like, we went to the moon, and then they put out this meme kind of thing. Like, we didn't go to the moon, but they didn't want people really going, well, what's on the moon? So these things are managed until they can figure it out, because you got a bunch of normal dudes in suits sitting at a big table like this, and it's their fucking responsibility to figure this thing out. And this shit is monumentally big. But back to
how would they manage this then? These regular dudes with access to communication like you have, how have they managed to disseminate this information and sort of confuse everybody?
I can tell. I don't know how they did it. I do know that they infiltrated UFOs. That was the very first thing they did in the 50s.
Sort of how FBI agents and undercover cops infiltrated Occupy Wall Street and pretended to be...
They get access to what the civilians are learning, how information transfers from one group to another, and then they start deflecting all their knowledge and putting in leaks and this and that, and getting them off the main track, not because of a disdain for citizens and not because of any other reason than picture ISIS. We don't know what ISIS is. They got a nuclear bomb, and we caught a guy trying to sneak in this bomb.
Right.
Are they going to stop and come sit on your couch and tell you all about it? No. And if you're like on the radio and there's all these people going, oh my God, we're going to die, a bomb, a bomb, a bomb. They'll hold up a second. You're not going to